How do you feel about browsing 2 hours on social media? Watching TV, playing video game for 2 more hours? It's easy and pleasurable, right? What about reading a book for 30 minutes? Learning a new skill for 30 more minutes? It's boring and difficult, right? Even though we know these things are good for us in a long run, we would not feel like doing it. How some people are motivated to do such a difficult and boring things? Is there any way of making these difficult things easy? To answer this question, we must look at this brain neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine often referred as a pleasure molecule. But dopamine is a desire that gives us motivation to get up and do things. To understand how powerful dopamine is, let us understand an experiment done by neuroscientists on rats. The scientists implanted electrodes into rat's brain. Whenever rat pulls a lever, the scientist stimulated the rat's reward system in the brain. As a result, the rats developed cravings so strong they kept pulling the lever over and over again for hours. They stopped eating and even sleeping. They kept pulling the lever until they got exhausted. Then they reversed the process. The scientists blocked the release of dopamine in the brain reward center. As a result, the rats became so lethargic they didn't even want to get up and drink water. They didn't even want to eat food. They didn't even want to mate. They didn't even crave for anything at all. You could say the rats lost all will to live. However, when food was placed directly into rat's mouth, they ate food and enjoyed it. They just didn't have motivation to get up, do it on their own. We would think that thirst and hunger motivate us to get food and water, but dopamine plays a major role. Even our human brain also prioritizes things such as more dopamine, more motivation, less dopamine, less motivation. The brain doesn't even care whether it is good for us or damaging us. Imagine a person is a drug addict. He knows whatever he is doing not good for him, still he wants more drug. A person scrolling on Instagram for hours and hours, he knows it is not good for him, still he is doing because of dopamine. Point to be noted here is every activity releases some amount of dopamine, whether it is drinking water, eating food, meditation or browsing internet. Highest dopamine happens when you get rewards randomly. Example, you are playing in a slot machine in a casino. You keep losing money until that point you are expecting a bigger reward. In a digital society, we are completely trapped in a social media, playing video games or pornography for high dopamine. You might think, so what, it's not harming me anyway. You would be wrong. Our bodies have biological system called homeostasis. It means our body likes to keep internal physical and chemical conditions at balanced level. Whenever imbalance occurs, our body adapts to it. When it is cold outside, our body temperature falls and we start shivering to generate heat and warm our body. When it's hot outside, our body temperature rises and we start sweating to lose some of the heat. Essentially, our body looking to maintain the body temperature. In the same way, our body develops tolerance. Imagine a person rarely drinks alcohol. Less alcohol will give him more kick. A person taking alcohol regularly, he needs more alcohol to give same kick because his body already developed the tolerance. More and more alcohol makes less sensitive to its effect. Same in case of dopamine. Imagine a beggar sitting in a street and asking for a food. If you offer a food to him, he will be happy. If you give biryani to him, he will be more happy and touch your feet. If you offer same biryani to a person who is eating regularly in a restaurant, he doesn't even care. Your body tries to maintain homeostasis. So, it downregulates the dopamine receptors. Whenever you receive high dopamine, it becomes normal until you receive more and more. Normal things will not excite you. A person going by walk, a bicycle will excite him. A person going by bicycle, a bike will excite him. A person going by bike, a car will excite him. Whatever you have will not get excited, same in case of dopamine. Because our brain used to having high dopamine levels. Those dopamine levels becomes new normal because it develops dopamine tolerance. That is why people prefer to playing video games or browsing internet rather reading a book or learning a skill. When the dopamine tolerance became so high, the normal low dopamine behavior will not excite them. Is there anything that can be done to prevent from this? The answer is yes. You need to perform dopamine fasting. You will avoid all high stimulating activities and allowing dopamine receptors to recover. What does it mean? You won't be using internet or technology like phone or computer. You won't be listening to music. You won't be eating junk food. You are going to remove all external sources of pleasure for the entire day. You are going to embrace the boredom. However, you would go walk, meditate, and be yourself to your thoughts and reflect your life and goals and write down any ideas on piece of paper, etc. These things looks quite intense, but if you wanted radical results, you need some radical action. The frequency of fasting can be 1 day in a week or 1 day in a month, 1 week in a year or 10 days in a year, depending on the individual needs and goals. You might be asking yourself, why would even this work? Imagine you are eating every single meal in a best restaurant in the town. The fancy meal becomes your new normal. In case someone offers bowl of plain rice, you probably refuse. It simply wouldn't taste as your restaurant meal. But suddenly you found yourself in a deserted island and starving. Suddenly that bowl of plain rice seems tasty food. What does dopamine detox do? It starves from all the pleasures you usually getting in turns that converts less satisfying activities into more desirable. To put it simply, dopamine detox works because you will become so bored, the boring stuff becomes more fun. Now, if you don't want to take such an extreme action of starving pleasure, you can do smaller dopamine detox. You would be selecting 1 day in a week. You are refraining yourself from high dopamine behavior completely. Whatever the behavior that might be. Checking your phone all the times, or playing a video game, or eating a junk food, or watching a pornography, or watching TV, whatever. You are completely going to avoid that activity 1 day for a week after week. You can still do other things, but the behavior you choose within the limits. You will feel bored, but that is the point. You want to let dopamine receptors to recover from unnaturally flooding high dopamine into your brain. Then you can connect the dopamine to things, activities that are actually benefit you, such as reading book and learning a new skill and exercising, meditation, etc. Alternatively, start difficult things first, then allow yourself to indulge into some dopamine activities. Example, every 1 hour of completed low dopamine work, I will allow myself to 5 minutes of low dopamine behavior. We are all addicts to dopamine to some extent, and that is good. Dopamine is motivating us to achieve our goals and improve ourselves. But it's up to you where from the dopamine you are getting, whether that activities are benefiting you or damaging you. You decide. Thank you.